I'm 87 years old, and I learned something 14 years ago that still hasn't found a place inside me. It doesn't settle like a memory, and it never rests the way truth usually does. It just stays like a chair in a room no one enters anymore. Always there, never touched. I'm not saying this to be forgiven. There's no one left who could offer that anyway. I'm speaking now because time is short and some things shouldn't reach the end without being said, at least once, even if no one is listening, even if it changes nothing. The girl I spent my whole life loving was never mine, and I didn't learn that until it was already too late, until there was nothing left to do except sit with it. The man living 3 houses down, he was what stays with me. Isn't only the truth, it's how long I lived without even questioning it. How many mornings I woke up believing something that was never real. You'd think a man would notice something like that. But life doesn't arrive in clear pieces. It comes in small, ordinary days. Days that look the same as the one before. And if nothing disturbs those days, you let them pass. You let them stack on top of each other until they become years, until they become your whole life. I had work, responsibilities, a routine that felt solid. Back then, that was enough. I didn't ask for more, didn't know there was more to ask for. I married young, most of us did. It didn't feel rushed, it felt expected, like the next step you were supposed to take. Her name was Ellen. She wasn't loud, she wasn't difficult, she was steady. That's how I used to describe her when people ask steady. Like that was the highest compliment I knew how to give. We didn't have a large wedding, just family, a few friends, and quiet congratulations. People shook my hand like I had stepped into something important. Maybe I had, or maybe I had stepped into something I didn't understand yet. Something I would spend my whole life failing to see clearly. We moved into a small house soon after, 2 bedrooms, a narrow kitchen, a front porch that creaked under your weight. Nothing special, but it was ours, or so I believed. I worked long hours. That part is clear to me. I told myself it was for us, for the future, for stability. That word mattered to me. Stability. I liked knowing what tomorrow would look like. Same time home, same chair, same table, same silence that I mistook for peace. Ellen didn't complain much, at least not in ways I noticed, and if she did, I probably didn't listen properly. I probably nodded and looked past her, already thinking about something else. We didn't talk deeply, not about feelings. We talked about groceries, bills, things that needed fixing. It felt normal. That's what I believed. That's what I told myself every single day. When she told me she was pregnant, I remember standing in the doorway, not knowing what I was supposed to feel. I smiled. I nodded. I placed my hand on her shoulder. It seemed like the right reaction inside. It was quieter than I expected, but I didn't question it. Men around me didn't do that. You accepted what came and you carried it. That's what I knew. That's what my father knew, and his father before him. We didn't examine our lives. We just lived them. The day our daughter was born, I stood in that hospital room, and I looked at her like she was something I needed to understand. Small, wrapped tight, eyes closed, fingers curled into tiny fists. I remember thinking, this is my responsibility now. It wasn't love, not yet. It was responsibility, and I confused that with being a good father for the next 40 years. I held her carefully, like something fragile you're afraid to drop. I didn't know how to speak to her, connect to something so small, so dependent on me. So I did what I understood. I worked longer hours, more shifts. I told myself it was for her, for Ellen, for the house. And maybe some of that was true, but some of it was because I didn't know how to be present without providing something, without handing over money or fixing something broken. Money made sense to me, presence didn't. Time, I treated like it would never run out, like there would always be tomorrow, to say the things I never said today. I didn't lose everything at once. I lost it in small moments, moments I chose not to notice, moments I let slip past me, like water through open fingers. The first time she spoke, I heard about it later. The first time she walked, I saw it happen again, but not the first time I missed it. I was somewhere else. I was always somewhere else. Ellen would tell me these things in the kitchen while I half listened, already thinking about tomorrow, already somewhere I hadn't even arrived yet. I would nod, maybe smile, but I never asked more. I didn't stay there. I moved on. I always moved on. Years passed like that, quietly, without sharp edges, without anyone stopping to ask if this was enough. My daughter grew. That's what I saw. Not how she grew, just that she did. Not who she was becoming, just that she was older than before. People said she had Ellen's eyes. I accepted it. Why wouldn't I? There was no reason to doubt anything, no reason to look closer than I had ever looked before. The man down the street, Robert, he moved in a few years later, friendly enough, kept his yard clean, waved when he saw you. We spoke sometimes, nothing deep, weather, work, simple things. He didn't feel important in my life. That's the strange part now. Someone can stand that close and still feel like nothing more than a passing detail, a background figure in a story you think is yours. I never paid attention to how often he spoke to Ellen. I never considered how long those conversations lasted. Why would our neighbors talk? Life continues. That's how it felt. That's how I let it feel. My daughter played outside. Sometimes I'd see her through the window, running along the sidewalk, her voice filling the afternoon, her laughter reaching me even through the glass. Sometimes Robert was outside, too. I remember seeing him smile at her once, just a normal smile at least. That's how I saw it then. Nothing about it stayed with me. That's how most things were. They happened and then disappeared into the day, into the ordinary blur of a life I wasn't paying attention to. Looking back now, I try to find moments where I should have noticed something, where something should have felt wrong. But life doesn't mark those moments. It doesn't slow down and say, look here. It just keeps moving. And if you're not paying attention, you miss what's forming right in front of you. You miss everything. Ellen changed over time, not suddenly, gradually, quieter in some ways, distant in others. But I told myself, that's just how life works. People settle, they become familiar, less expressive, less reachable. I didn't question it. I didn't ask her what she felt. I didn't ask her if she was happy. I didn't even ask myself. We lived side by side, not together, not apart, just side by side. Two people in the same house, sleeping in the same bed, but living in different silences. And when you live like that long enough, you stop expecting more. That becomes your version of peace, or something close to it, something you accept, because you don't know what else to reach for. My daughter became a young woman before I realized how little I actually knew about her, not just her thoughts, but who she truly was. Her laughter, her fears, the quiet moments. I never understood the dreams she stopped telling me about. I knew none of it deeply, but I didn't think that was unusual. I believed that was how fathers were. Distant, providing, present, but not involved, present in body, absent in everything else. That's what I had seen, that's what I became, and I never questioned it. Not once, not until everything had already passed, not until the truth had lived beside me for years without ever being spoken. I was in my 70s when it finally reached me. Even then, it didn't arrive all at once. It came slowly, uninvited, unwanted, too late to change anything. Ellen had already been gone 3 years. Cancer. It moved quickly. Once it appeared faster than we expected, faster than I was ready for. We didn't have the conversations people imagine, no confessions, no sudden honesty, no last words that made sense of everything. Just quiet days, hospital smells, machines doing their work, and the sound of her breathing, getting slower. I sat beside her, more in those months than I had in years before, and years before. I processed, perforces tofestor, my sedi divorce, my sedi divorce, my sedi divorce. Funny how that happens when there's no time left. Suddenly, you're there every day, holding a hand you should have held 1,000 ordinary mornings before, like that was ever enough. Like those final months could make up for the decades. But even then, I didn't ask the right questions. I asked if she was comfortable, if she needed water, if she was in pain. But I never asked if she had been carrying something alone. I never asked if there was something she needed to tell me, and she never offered it. Maybe she wanted to, maybe she didn't know how anymore, or maybe she believed it didn't matter. Not anymore, not after so many years. When she passed, the house became quiet. Not immediately, slowly, the kind of quiet that settles over weeks, that fills every room with something heavier than silence. Her chair stayed empty, her things untouched. I left them there, as if that could keep something alive, as if not moving them meant she wasn't really gone. My daughter visited, but not often. She had her own life, a family, children, responsibilities. The same excuses I once made. We spoke on the phone, short conversations. How are you feeling? Did you take your medicine? Practical things. Familiar, but not close. Never close. Years passed like that. Slow days, predictable evenings. I spent time near the window, watching the street, watching people come and go. You notice things differently when you're old, not because the world changes, but because you finally have time you didn't know what to do with, time that only shows you what you should have seen before Robert was still there. Older now, slower, but consistent. Morning walks, yard work. We exchanged a few words, nothing meaningful, just enough to acknowledge each other, just enough to remain neighbors. I never thought much about him, not even then. That's what surprises me most. Even when everything was already in place, I still didn't see it. I still looked right at him and saw nothing. It was a letter that changed everything. A simple envelope, handwriting I didn't recognize. I almost didn't open it. At my age, most mail doesn't matter. Bills, advertisements, things that don't require your heart. But something about it, I don't know. Maybe curiosity, maybe something deeper, something that already knew. Inside, one sheet of paper and a photograph. Old, faded corners worn soft. I unfolded the paper and I read it slowly, the way you read something, when you already feel what it's going to say. It took me a moment to understand. It was Ellen Younger, standing in front of our house, and beside her, Robert Younger too, standing closer than neighbors should, not touching but not distant either. Something in the way they stood said everything the letter was about to say. I stared at it for a long time, trying to place it, trying to dismiss it, trying to find another explanation. The letter was short, no name, no explanation, just a few lines. You lived your whole life believing something that was never true. I couldn't let you die without knowing. That was it. Nothing more. I sat there, holding that you die without knowing. That was it. Nothing more. I sat there, paper, and for a moment, nothing happened inside me. Just a strange silence, like something had finally stopped resisting, like a door had opened to a room I didn't know existed. At my age, reactions take time. They arrive slowly, like sound from far away, like grief that doesn't know where to land. I looked at the photograph again, then out the window, Robert's house, still there, unchanged, and yet Everything had changed. Everything I thought I knew had shifted beneath me without the ground ever moving. I didn't confront him. Not that day, not the next, not even weeks later, because I already knew nothing he said would change what had already happened. Ellen was gone. Years had passed. My daughter had lived her whole life believing something, and so had I. We had both lived in the same lie, without ever knowing it was a lie. Knowing the truth doesn't give you those years back. It just makes them harder to look at. Every memory now had a shadow behind it. Every moment I thought was mine now had a question mark beside it. Robert passed away 5 years later. No explanations, just like Ellen, and whatever existed between them went with them, buried in 2 separate graves, a few miles apart, and I stayed here with questions that have nowhere to go, with answers that came too late to mean anything. I think about my daughter. Sometimes I think about all the times I looked at her and never saw him, never even considered. I think about how she laughed, how she tilted her head when she was thinking, and I wonder now which parts of her came from me, if any. I don't know, I'll never know. And maybe that's the heaviest part. Not the betrayal, not the years I lost, but the not knowing, the living in between, which truth and doubt, with no way to reach either one. I still call her my daughter, because that's the only truth I have left. Because I raised her, I watched her grow, I paid for her school, walked her down the aisle, held her children in my arms. I was there, maybe not enough, but I was there. And I think that's enough. It has to be enough, because there's nothing else left to hold on to. Silence.